87% of realtors get into the business and get out of the business in 2 years. That doesn't exist in our world.
We have massive visions around growing our businesses, and we are always looking to add talent to our world. We do everything in our power to ensure the people we surround ourselves with defy the odds, get into production, and build massive lives for themselves.
If you are a realtor looking to get into the business, we have a blueprint for success.
With locations all across Canada, reach out to us. Let's talk about partnership and opportunities. We are looking forward to it. Welcome back, Sales Beast listeners. We're here today with Cody joining us to talk all about his business, where he's at and where he's been. And I know he's got a great story to share. So I'm very excited to welcome Cody to the podcast. Cody, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Anna and Mike.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, you're very welcome. Looking forward to it.
Just super briefly, Cody, give us a small glimpse into your life. We know a little bit about you and where you've come from. You came to Canada at 18 years old. What's happened since then?
Yeah, so I was really a kid before I came here, not like physically, but I think mentally. I was a kid because I was that kid, that Asian kid that been told to go to school, get the top grades. And I was quite lost, to be very honest with you. And when I first came here, that was the first year that I took myself very seriously, because that's the first year I got a huge setback, as in, hey, English is your second language. I couldn't even read the math 12 question. So that's when I know everything. I know the answer, but I don't even understand the question. So I started from there. That was the toughest year. And I thought it was the toughest year, but we just broadened our horizon, because getting into engineering at University of Toronto, again, is a very competitive school, very competitive people. Now that looking back, we don't know why we're so competitive, but just that environment, right? And as an engineer, we always, very honestly, when I was an engineer, I was like, okay, what is the highest paying job when I get out of school, right? That's a lot of what we talk about. Friends, all other people in the engineer, right? So we kind of all think towards, the oil and gas industry or the investment banking, right? The consulting side. That's kind of like the dream job at that time. But little do we know that, that's just one part of the income quadrant, right? That just help you get started, but that will not get you to where you want to be. So I graduated as engineer. I work at Honda. I know I just heard that Mike work at Honda as well, but we work at the front office. He worked at the corporate. I work at the manufacturing, the actual factory that makes Honda Civic and CRV. So we have a very different environment. I was wearing the white uniform, like a medium, I'm not sure if you guys were wearing that. And I was trying to work really my butt off just to save up for my down payment, right? And that's the time where I had a day trading coach. She was in Taiwan, very successful at a very young age, 2 years younger than me. And she was actually managing a lot of money. I probably should have mentioned that, but it's in the 9 figures, right? At 24. So a lot to learn. And then meanwhile, I was doing a lot of overtime in the daytime just to save up, because they do pay overtime where I work at Honda. So that was the only way I know how to make more money besides the side hustle. Side hustle wasn't a big thing. I was getting paid 1.5 to 2 times. So I'm like, okay, that's the fastest way. But, that's how I get my first house, second house, and now I have 4, right? And there's a lot of equity and a lot of cash that is ready to deploy. Once I set up my stock option side of business, now we have a team of 5, and we have helped hundreds of students, mostly real estate investors. I would say 70-80% real estate investors, a lot of doctors, a lot of all walks of life. There's including musicians and all that. So people who think they're good at math or people who think they're weak at math, we have helped them all. And now we're just at the stage where, okay, what's the next step? And how are we going to keep growing bigger as a business? And personally, how can I make money more efficiently and have more time back? I'm preparing for having a family. So when I have kids, I want to be that dad, send my kids to school and picking up back from school, and everything else is still taken care of. That's a long story.
Cody, I think a lot of our listeners, they're going to be realtors or real estate investors. The stock market is something that's very foreign to a lot of them, I would say. How can the stock market fit into people's real estate investing plans? And what specifically is a stock option? Why should someone explore?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking that. I started playing with stocks since 2011 when I was a second year in school. I always enjoyed the corporate finance, the accounting, the marketing class a lot more than the engineering class. So I took that as a business minor, and it was at night. I really enjoyed those classes. Those classes are the ones I'm really happy to sit there, right? And I'll say, when I first started, I started with the boring stuff. I just bought some bank stocks and just wait, get paid some dividend, right? For people who doesn't know what dividend is, it's kind of like you put the money in the bank and they pay you interest, right? And instead you invest in a company, right? So it started boring. And then there's 2 years of my life where I was trying to prove myself and say, hey, I want to try day trading. I have a good coach. I should have made it, right? And I soon realized that it's possible to make it, but it's not for everyone. And the time and the stress and the health commitment is really high. So I know that I couldn't scale this. I couldn't teach this to people. Only maybe the top engineers or top entrepreneurs will learn it, but then they already have other business. So that's where I kind of step back, start playing with different option strategy and try to see which one works the best, which one can spend the least amount of time, but make the most amount of money in terms of money and in terms of controlling your stress level, right? So we have a life. So this could not be a second job. This could not be a side hustle, just a thing that can run in the background and you do have the full control of it, right? So that's where kind of stock option comes in. Now, we help students make 1 to 4% per month. Is it like this every month? No, some months could be 10%. Some months could be, 1% or even like zero or even in the negative. But a lot of that is because the stock market moves a lot faster, right? If there's some news in the market, if it's the COVID variant where we're filming right now is December the 6th, right? The new COVID variant comes out, it will reflect in the market really fast. Now, all the business has been still doing really well, but the market will always go up and down around that growth of the business, right? So in the short term, there's a lot of fear and greed that controls the stock market price. But in the long term, it all comes back to the fundamental. Is this stock doing well? If it is, then in the long term, you have all this, but it's still going in the right direction. But if the business is not doing well, no matter what, in the long term, if the business is not doing well, even if it's coming up with a super effective cure for COVID, then, once the COVID pass, it could still fail, right? So in the long term, it's all about the business. But in the short term, just a lot of people are pushing the greed and then pushing the fear. That's why the stock market people think is a gambling place, right? Like a casino.
And what is it that you're doing? You're selling puts or?
Yeah. So in the beginner course, we talk about selling puts, covered call, and really the basics of just buying stocks, right? You can really just buy stocks in your register account and decide if you want to sell half of it, you use half of it to sell covered call, or you just want to wait. That's no problem, And, in the intermediate course, that's where I open up a little bit because all my alumni already know what's the basic. And then we take some of the profit from selling options to buy calls, buy leaps, or buy index or buy ETF, right? So we have ways to generate cash flow, but where do we dump those money? We can dump in a more passive way, right? Or we can use those to take a higher risk, but we know even if we lose all of it, we're not going to lose out of it, but even if we lose out of it, we have all our ground covered from a basic strategy, right? So there's a chance that we can increase the return, but the worst is, let's say instead of making 4% per month, we drop it down to 2 to 3. But if it works out, we might make double of that, right? So that's kind of like the risk management point of that strategy, right?
So coming down to, I guess, your interest in the stock market and everything that you're kind of creating around this, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with your team and how people can kind of get involved if they're looking to learn more?
Yeah. So what I've been doing with my team in the past, I started with getting personal coaching clients. Then we all know that down that path, you soon will get overwhelmed. You start repeating yourself, right? So I created a course. Then now that I created a course, right, I help hundreds of students. And what I realized is most alumni want to even make more money and spend less time. So that's why the new business model is we have a mastermind where we have people come in, we read the news. I personally train my researcher analysts to read the news on a daily basis for us, post twice per day, and I'll share my trades. And we have trained coaches that hold people accountable who are new to it. So make sure they don't fall off, right? Hey, by first week, have you opened up your account? By second week, have you reviewed chapter 1 to chapter 4? By week 3, have you finished it? Have you reviewed the recorded webinar? Week 4, have you make your first trade, right? So we hold them accountable to make sure the more successful they are, the more successful I am, right? The better reputation I get and the more money they make. And just selfishly, they're willing to sign up and continue this mastermind because they get so much value for it, right? So that's how the business is built right now.
Amazing. So where can people find out more information? I know you said that you have a Facebook group. If they want to kind of plug in and kind of get some more information, where can they find you?
Yeah. So everywhere on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, I have a YouTube channel as well. So, if it's possible, you and Mike can help me put the link of the Facebook in the description. There's about north of 4,000 people in there, all like-minded. I do run Facebook Live every Sunday, 7 p.m., no matter where I am. Yesterday, I run at a hot pot place. I was literally eating hot pot. I stop and I run a Facebook Live. And then there's a lot of vlogs, a lot of past alumni interviews serve as case studies and just let people, have trendy posts for people to vote on. For example, is Tesla stock going to go up or down? Who do you think the new CFO for a certain company is? And what's the impact and all that? Just keep people engaging and provide more value, all for free.
I have a question for you. So your company or your slogan is "Say Yeah to Fire."
Yeah, there we go. That's
fire. There it is. My wife, a couple of years ago, she kept coming to me saying, "You have to learn about this FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early." And I told her to basically get lost. I like the job. I'm doing really well at it. I don't want to retire. And then it was last year, I was feeling kind of burnt out, and she hit me with it again. Maybe this FIRE thing, retire early, isn't such a bad idea, because at some point in the future, it'd be nice to have the choice, right?
Yes. More options, right?
Yeah, no pun intended. I trade options now. And one thing I learned through the FIRE movement is that 4% rule. So maybe you can probably do a better job of explaining what it is than I can. But from my understanding, you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio annually. Mm-hmm. And 98% chance you'll never run out of money if you don't exceed the 4%. Mm-hmm. That was tested based on different months at different times in history. Mm-hmm. That 4% rule apply when you're using a strategy similar to yours, when your returns are so much higher than the average person?
Is that a question or is that a statement?
That's a question. That's a very long
okay. I wasn't sure. You just stopped. I'm like, wait, is that a question or is that an answer?
So does Cody Yeh live by the 4% rule, or can he withdraw more money because he makes so much more money off his investments?
I think Mike, Anna are kind of similar person like myself. We're always looking for the next challenge. But there's a stage where we're more burnt out, or there's a stage where we need a little bit more freedom to kind of lay low and settle things a little bit. So, and that's a great part. Like, I think for us, like, at least for me, I can never sit on the beach. I tried it for 3 days and I was so bored. So my ideal life is more like, if I work in the morning, 8 to 12, and then after lunch is all hang out, golf, tennis, meeting new people. And then dinner time is hang out with family. That's my goal, but I still want to work every day. Otherwise, I'll be like, okay, what am I living? What am I doing? Right? That's for me. But I think the FIRE is a state, right? Yes, money is a very big part of it. But once you can set up a system that helps you bring the money in, it takes your peace of mind out of always in the struggle and the survival mode. When you're in the survival mode, you're always looking at what's in front of you. You cannot look further, and you dare to dream. There's a Chinese saying that I'm too poor to think where you're thinking, right? I limit my imagination, and it's very real, right? Once you get to that state, you can, okay, I have multiple stream of income, either from the cash flow from real estate or stock option or just dividend. Then from there, you're like, okay, now my time should be spent on more valuable stuff, whatever that's more valuable to you. And then you can stop doing a lot of things you're not supposed to be doing. And then I know that's what, Keller Williams teach, right? Really, it's this, who, not how. And if you're not doing the 5 things as a realtor, then you're not doing your job, right? I remember that 5 things, Sandy and Dylan keep banging on it. So it's a state, but yes, if you have a higher income, you could withdraw more. But to me I'm not withdrawing any of the money. I'm still in that growing phase, and I just keep letting it compound. But I know that, I do pull out some money, sometimes put into more long-term investment. For example, like I pull out a lot more money and buy a lot more real estate. And I stopped for the last 2 years because I was focusing on building this. And it's my first actual business I'm building. So I'm learning a lot. I'm hiring a lot of business coach, going through a lot of mastermind to learn what's the right way to build it, right? But now that I know it, yeah, there's going to be a lot of proceeds that go into more passive stuff, right? Keep buying the asset. because we all know the inflation is more than 6% what they advertise. In my opinion, it's more like 12 to 15%. So if we're not buying asset and we're just putting that money and make 4%, in my opinion, we are still losing the game.
That's a good point. I want to share my screen really quickly and I want to get your thoughts on it. I don't know if you've seen this chart before.
Let's do it.
It's basically what you just talked about, like depending on where your mindset is. And I know you're very big on mindset. It kind of reflects exactly where you're going to end up in your income. So this is, have you guys seen this before?
I saw it. I saw it.
You should explain it, Anna, for anyone that's listening and not watching on YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to dive into it. So if you're watching us on YouTube, obviously you have it in front of you. If you're listening to us on any of our other streaming sites, make sure you go check out the video, and we'll post this actually on our website as well. But basically it just talks about where your mindset is. And when you're looking for talent or when you're looking to grow with people, you should really think about what kind of mindset they have. And I'm sure, Cody, you would agree with this. But if you're looking, or if the person that you're getting into business with is only thinking about that next paycheck when they're getting paid next week or in the month, well, that's going to be a direct reflection of their income. And this is also the reason why people like Elon operate at such a high capacity, because they're not just thinking about what's happening today or tomorrow, but they're thinking 50, 100 years down the road. And obviously their income just reflects that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And then I think I get asked on different podcasts, say who's someone you look up to. I say Elon, but I say Elon in the way that I don't want to be him, because I think he has a really tough life. He's too smart to waste his time anywhere else. But if you're just a more average people, but you want to excel, then you can dream big, but don't try to give up everything else, right? He basically optimized his life to be around his 50 years dream, but he sacrificed a lot of other things as well. So for me, it's more, I know people like, yeah, there's no balance, but for me is you really have to define what's important to you, right? And then that's very important to Elon, but doesn't mean that's very important to you. You have to know what's important to you. I think definitely though, you can always learn from them, how they run the business. But Elon almost went bankrupt 3 times, right? Yeah. 2008, 2012, 2026. So if you have that kind of guts to reinvest all your money into the new companies, I mean, by all means, go to that. But just make sure everyone that's important to you around you are on board and you don't lose them. Because at the end of the day, you can make all the money you want, but at the end of the day, you can't bring it, right? So I think that's a very important point as well. That's why I think the FIRE thing that's really important to me. It's just to have more option, and you can have a choice, right? The freedom to have a choice, right? However you want to live it.
And I guess that also kind of ties into the purpose. So is that something that you work with your clients on? Like not everybody is built to like understand what their life purpose is, but do you teach that or coach that through your courses? Or is that something that you talk about with people that you work with?
That's a great question. You know, I used to be like, this mindset thing, just throw it on the window. I hate those. Just give me the meats and bones. You know, whenever I go to seminar, I'm like, nice mindset again. I do touch on the beginning of the course. What I mainly touch on what's called the golden circle. So there's a why in the middle, the how outside of it, and then the what, right? So most of us were trained since we were a kid to do the what and the how, and we kind of, it's kind of aligned with our why. But if you start from inside out, right? And then once you have certain minimum standard for your living, then you can, that's when you can really start with the why. And this stock option help you to get to that point. So you can really, now we're not struggling. Well, it's not like everyone has a different definition of struggling. Someone makes like 100K per month is like, Cody, I'm struggling. I'm like, okay. But once you get enough, then you can focus on the why and make sure all your activity are tying back to your why. So for example, we're having this conversation, Anna, almost joined the KW legacy team. I sit back for a little bit because, for me is how can I make sure the way I'm going to is work more efficiently, right? Build a whole team out of it. And I have to take a pause on that because I can only focus on one thing, right? So I know my why. If anything that's not aligned with my why, I have to take a step back. So that helps me make a lot of good decisions to myself. And I'm very honest with myself and I don't burn myself out. I have to say a lot more no's, but it's a lot more aligned and I'm a lot more happier this way. Right.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's something that's big. And I'm sure your business coaches are also guiding you to do that, is to be able to say no. And I think, Mike, between you and I, I'm such a yes person. Like I'm always into yes, yes, yes. And this year it has been like a big thing about like making sure I'm saying yes to the right things and then saying no to others. Now, I wanted to also add to your golden circle. So I actually was on a call with Aaron Kaufman. I don't know if you know him from KW.
I heard about his name. Yes.
Yeah, he's really big on growth, and he's a great speaker and mentor. And he added, well, I don't think he did, but he showed us an example where he added another piece to the golden circle, and it was the who. So not just the why and the how and the what, but the who as well, and finding those right people that tie in and align with your why.
Yeah. And then who, like, I think we all read that book by Dan Sullivan, Who Not How. I think he came up with a new book, right? Something, The Gap. Right? I haven't read that book yet, but yeah, Who Not How is something we're not been taught in school, because in university, I remember they were so careful and not learning from anyone else. Like, you couldn't even read other people's essay. If you're going to use something in their essay, you better make sure you citation and all that. But in real world though, if you can learn from other people's success, great. But if you can learn from other people's failure, even better, because you're so much further ahead of everyone else, right? So I think in the business world, if you can learn from other people, like, not saying like you're going to copy the exact same slogan, just go after the clients or anything, but I think there's a lot of advantage if you can learn from them and you know how to dissect that and think, hey, they're doing really well in this case. They're not doing so well here. Hey, here's a gap where I can fit in my niche, right? And serve that niche. And that way, I think you're making the whole market more robust. That's the way I look at it.
I think Dylan was on here a couple months ago, and yeah, he made a comment that we're in 2021 and you're going to be hard pressed to find someone that hasn't already accomplished what you want to accomplish. So why not just make your life easy and R&D, just rip off and duplicate what they've already done and learn mistakes so you don't have to make the same ones.
Yes. And then that's what I'm paying for, really. But you rip on duplicate, but you have to be very careful and don't blindly duplicate, right? Because you might be duplicate or failure too, right? A lot of business. This is my business coach, right? So they're running a 9-figure business. They're grossing 10 million. They run a coaching company, right? They're coaching the coaches, but they're like, yeah, we gross 10 million. But my question is always, so what's your net, right? They're, oh, our net is 33%. Okay. So I know that's your net, but a lot of people just, oh yeah, we're grossing 10 million, but they don't focus on the profit margin. Because if you're running very thin on profit margin, the moment something change, you're so vulnerable. You're just one step away from a failure, right? But the higher the profit margin is, the more mistakes you can make, the more research you can do, the more things you can try. And I think, like, as a business, you need to focus on that too and have a balance, right? So what I learned from a business coach is 1 to 4, right? If you're going to spend something on marketing, you want to get 1 to 4. So if you spend $1, you want to get $4 out of it. If you're doing that, if you're getting lower than that, visit internally. There's something wrong in your business. The conversion is not there, or your team is not strong enough. So focus on that first. Otherwise, if you can get 1 to 4, that's how he scaled from. He spent like, I think $100,000 on Facebook ads every month to now, I think $500,000 and up. So it's not for everyone, but I have seen someone and he knows every stage. Cody, you're going to run into this. If you're doing organically, you're going to run into this. You're going to get stuck here, right? So he knows it exactly, right? So it's great to learn from them, but knowing that, is that someone you want to be, right? Is that a team you want to build? You can look up to him and say, yeah, he's making a lot more money, but is he really happy? Is that something you want to become, right? So it's great. I love the R&D, but just make sure that aligns with your purpose as well. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Anna, you have any other questions?
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about I know you're a real estate investor. So what is your vision going forward with either your real estate side or the team that you're building?
Yeah. So I've been actually, I'll say this. I never said on any other podcast before, is every coaching students I take, I try to donate a part of it to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. And I want to have more of that culture. That's why we're having team meeting and make sure that everything we're building going forward, whether that's real estate, whether that's coaching, whether that's anything that help out anyone on this planet, we should donate part of that profit. And I think this is very contagious, because even for real estate investor, they will not imagine if, let's say, every house, I know everyone's like, Cody, we can get a $500 per month. If I need a 10,000, I need 20 of them or something. But if you can donate, let's say $100 out of it, just one every month, or if someone is be more aggressive, $100 out of every property and give it back to a good cause, I think that's very contagious. And I think we don't even realize how much power we have as real estate investor. We are one of the luckiest person to own a very strong asset on earth. And I think like the whole team, I wanted to have this kind of mentality, right? The more you make, the more responsibility you have, the more ability you have, the more you have to give back because you are the lucky one, right? So, well, not the lucky one. You work for it, but this is your strength. So you have to give it back. And we want to build all my business into a for-purpose business. It's not just that we want to make the most money in the world. Okay, what's the point, right? I get to a point where it doesn't really make sense, right? So I always put and when I run my profit and expense report, I always put a small chunk into kind of like for a purpose. And then that might change. Sometimes this food bank, sometimes that, but it just feels good. Yes, it's a good tax write-off, but also you build that culture. And anyone who joined me, I'm contagious. I'm telling everyone what I'm doing. Hey, this is exactly what I'm giving out. So I urge you to do the same for your business. And I think overall, we're going to have a better society.
I really love the phrase that money is only good for the good that it does. And it's so true. Like you can make millions and billions of dollars, but if you're not giving it to a cause or doing something to impact other people's lives, then what's the point? What's the point of making all this money?
Yeah,
you can be successful.
You can make the money. You can give it out too, right? The more you make, the more you give it out. And guess what? For people listening to this podcast, watching at this YouTube, there is a trend of the more you give back, the more traction you will get, the more business you will get. And this is proven. I've seen in many successful business. This is a new trend. A lot of people in the market right now, they're looking for a brand that they can associate to, that are giving back to the society. So if you brand yourself and do that thing you say you're going to do, will actually help up the society. And also you will get more people who believe in what you give back to, and you will draw out more positive people. You have more clients even. So it's not like, oh, I'm giving away a lot of my profit. No, it's actually a good cycle, right? It's all come back to you and 10x coming back to you as well. Because, yeah.
You're attracting people with the same values and that hopefully do business in the same way, and probably easier to deal with those people than people that don't operate like that.
And there's a marketing research backing up. There is a number backing up. So this is it's not coming out of thin air that I'm hoping more people do business with me. A lot of people, especially millennials, even Gen Z, when you do a research on how to make a purchase, a lot of time they want to know whether you're giving back or what's your purpose. What are you doing? Right. So a lot of even Coca-Cola is spending a lot of money trying to hire brand or strategists and say, how can we set up that brand and we actually do what we say we're going to do? Right. So it's a real thing. And I think this has never been talked about on any of the podcasts. So I want to shed some lights on that. The whole slogan is to go big and give big. Okay. Go big and give big.
Do you have any goals around how much you want to give back as we move
you took my question. Yeah. What's your goal around giving back?
So when I have personal coaching client or when I have my courses, I think every student I sign up, I give away $100. Right? Just to the charity, but I think I could give more because I do have a higher profit margin than that. But for me, whenever I'm thinking about giving back, right? Whenever I think about volunteer, this is what I'm thinking about. I kind of have a crazy brain. I don't think about, okay, should I just go volunteer my time at a food shelter? Because if I do that, anyone could do that. I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. That's the minimum I could do. But if I can put my brain to some kind of giving back to the only things that can done by Cody because of his brand, because of his connection, because of his network, then that's something I'm more excited about. So instead of just giving him my time, I will use my brain, and that give back will be a lot more powerful, a lot more contagious, right? Just like going on this podcast, it's at least going to be hundreds of people listening to this every month. I know it's going to be in the thousands very soon, right? So if one person is impacted by this and start giving back, then that's very contagious. I think that's much better use of my time, much better use of my reach and network.
You're a man that seems to be very obsessed by efficiency.
I know.
You run your business, the way you trade. Maybe you learned that at Honda. I know you guys at the plant were extremely efficient.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, it's a Japanese culture. So believe it or not, I don't learn much efficiency there. There's still a lot of bureaucracy, but I'll say it's a lot less than some other companies. But yeah, when I start running the business, everything's like the productivity is a very key, right? So if I can spend less time doing more things, then at least I have more time enjoying my life and spending on things that I want, right? So it's all about efficiency.
Efficiency, not necessarily for the sake of making more money.
Yeah, more for just more free time, right? I know a lot of real estate agent out there. When they listen to this, they're like, "We are really working really hard. We're driving around. We're doing analysis and all that." But for me, maybe everyone's in a different state. But if you're a business owner, if you're that visionary guy, a lot of time, if you're always running around, if your calendar is always full, then you can't focus on thinking what's the next step or 10 steps ahead, right? And I was been telling people is like, this is nuts. Every time I take a shower, good ideas comes to me. And I jump out of my shower and put on my phone. Or every time I'm driving, I'm like, my girlfriend Claudia, please put this on the calendar for me. Like I gonna forget about it in 1 second, but please put it on there for me. So she's like you said, she thinks I'm like efficiency freak, right? But for me, it's just when I'm free flowing, not thinking about anything, that's where the best ideas comes. I really enjoy those states. I think a lot of people need to have more of those states, and at least they will have clarity whether they're doing the right thing. Otherwise, they just keep running around. Yes, we have a next deal. Yes, we have a next one. This month, how many? 4. Okay, what does that mean, right? Are you a step closer to where you want to be? Or I know that everyone has sales goals and all that, but are you getting closer to where you want to be, right? Or are you just like chasing the number?
See that so much in the real estate industry. I was talking to one of the guys on the team the other day about it. And you have a lot of people that some of them have been on this podcast and they put up big numbers, 50 deals a year, 70 deals a year, 80 deals a year. And you see year over year, they do the same thing. And to me, 80 deals a year, once very impressive. Sure, you do twice, very impressive. I'm not impressed the third time you do it. That's just what you do. And I feel like some of those people, they don't build in enough space within their lives to actually move their business forward. Because someone that can put up 80 deals a year is a very impressive person. What if they gave themselves a little bit of time to think about how they could build
the team up, right?
Scale
it, right? You show the level 1 to level 7, right? Maybe that's already, you could go to a level, I think level 5 or 6 for that. No problem, right? Just by the average price around Hamilton or Toronto, I think you go to level 5, 6, just off the top of my head. No problem, right? And now you can even make more deals because now you have a time, you take a time back, you have your team. Now you go out and do what you do best at networking and all that. Instead of always like, here's my car, call me if you need anything. See ya, right? Kind of thing. Now you really have a real conversation. You're always present.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you do 80 deals, I know someone who do 90 deals per year. They're never there. And they always look so stressed. It's like, always I look left, right, checking phone, left, right, checking phone. Like, I'm like, dude, like, I know you're making a lot of money, but how long can you do this for? How long can your partner or kids stand this, right? It's a different question, right? So I think if you're doing that, really, you should learn how to build the team and build it as a business, right? And it's tough. I have to learn it, and I pay a lot of money learning it, make a lot of mistakes, but it's totally worth it. I was telling people, and even my business coach told me this, is like, Cody, if you're going to hire someone, the first 3 to 6 months, don't think that you're going to do less job. You're going to do way more. You're going to pay them too. And your business is going to be hurting. But if you train them well, if you pick the right people, you pick the right who, after 3 to 6 months, you're going to thank yourself for doing this. And that's how you move forward, right? And hire fast, fire fast, right? Make sure your goals are aligned. Always throw your expectation first up front. If they're scared, okay, this probably is not the right person. So it's good. You guys don't even waste time on that.
I have a tip for you. Do you have an Apple Watch?
I have it. That's why my Siri went off. I don't know why my Siri thought I was talking to it.
Honestly, I have the same thing. And now I've just been telling Siri all my ideas. And then at the end of the day, I just go through all my ideas in my notepad that Siri took down for me and then put them into like an action plan or send them off to the team. It's much better than having to call your wife and bug her and tell her all your ideas.
No, she was sitting beside me. Sitting beside me driving.
That's perfect then.
Do you just like go like, Siri, hey, write this down on my notes? Is that kind of how you do it?
Yeah, I say Siri, whatever, it can do anything, right? So you can do notes, you can add calendar invites and different things like that. So now that's a
good tip.
It's pretty automatic. I'm driving a lot, so it's good.
Yeah, good tip. Is Mike doing that as well?
Mike has no watch on.
Mike's really good with his calendar. So I don't know if he needs to be running around.
Something we can all learn from.
Yeah. Definitely. So I think we're going to start wrapping things up. But Cody, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. We'll let you kind of leave us with some takeaways. But first, I want to ask you a question that we ask all of our guests.
Oh, really?
Who do you know that we should have on the podcast?
Who do you know that you should have on the podcast? I think like continuing that for purpose business. I think it'll be great to see like Cole Hatter. That's a guy from the US. He's very big on for purpose business. Cole Hatter, so COLE space HATTER. They're running their own kind of mastermind thing called Thrive. And I just think, we should have more of those people to be contagious to all the industry. Give back more, go big to give big, right? So that's where I got the ideas from. And I think he really owes that credit to.
Awesome. We'll have to reach out and get him on the podcast. Any final questions or thoughts, Cody or Mike?
Okay. I thought it was a great chat.
No, not on my end. I did most of the talking. So
that's usually how it is. It's good. We want to learn from you, right?
I hope I bring a lot of value, or at least some value, or people at least is like, Cody, that's exactly what I not want to do. Okay, that's even great too, right? So yeah, I don't have any question at this point.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll make sure to put all the links down below in the description on YouTube and all of our podcast links. Thanks again for joining us today, Cody.
Yeah, thanks for having me.